Hello, I hope you're doing okay out there. For those who don't know me, I'm Paul Kane, author of books like The Hooded Man, Before, Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of Hell, and Arcana. I was both honoured and a little intimidated when I was asked to give this keynote speech for the WordCrafter conference, mainly because I've never done anything like it before. I've talked to writing groups, colleges and unis, sat on panels and done readings, but never a keynote speech. I started to agonise, as I tend to do with everything, about what to say or even how I'd say it. Then I was told that the theme or title of this year's con was New Beginnings, and it sparked something inside me that I wanted to talk about. When I first started out trying to make my way as a fiction writer especially, it was quite a lonely process. Just sitting at home hammering away on a keyboard, then sending stories off to faceless small press magazine editors for them to pass judgment on. Thankfully, a lot of them were kind to this fledgling scribbler 20-something years ago. Some even bought more from me, which was all the encouragement I needed to go on. But then I was invited to a local gathering of genre writers, where else but in a pub, and I discovered that this didn't have to be a lonely process at all. I looked on in wonder as people shared war stories about their experiences in the business, some of them talking about working in TV and film, others about their mass market novels, in particular Simon, Knight of the Triffids Clark, who has since become one of my best friends inside and outside of work. And this was many years before I'd have anything published mass market myself, probably something like a decade actually. But I also took comfort in the knowledge that no matter what level we get to, no matter how hard this writing lark becomes, we're all in it together. This was a revelation to me, that we're all in this together and a new beginning of sorts. I'd already started to write journalism by that time, reviewing movies or delivering articles to places like Area 51 and Eclipse magazines, but there's nothing like the camaraderie of the fiction writing crowd. From there, I went to larger conventions and met even more big authors, some of whom I'd been reading even before I started tinkering around myself on my mum's old typewriter back home in my teens. When I became part of the British Fantasy Society and their special publications editor, I even started attending FantasyCon, their flagship convention every year. I met and chatted to the likes of Kim Newman, Ramsey Campbell, Joe Hill. I recall with great fondness sitting on a couch with Joe at his first FCon talking about Scooby-Doo. People like Lisa Tuttle and so many more. People who've become my friends as well as my colleagues over the years. Their words of wisdom and encouragement meant a great deal back then, and just as much now. I won't carry on naming names or thanking people here, as it'll turn into a kind of cringy Oscar ceremony type of affair. But those people out there know who they are. No exaggeration to say that meeting other writers, sharing our experiences, opened up a whole new world for me and made me feel infinitely better about what I was going through and what I was writing. I don't mean to make this sound like we all sat around drowning our sorrows again and again, because we didn't. I've had some of my best times at writing conventions and get togethers. I even met my wife, Maria Regan, through the BFS, and at our first FCon, together back in 2003 in Stafford. Seems like a lifetime ago now, probably because it is. A new beginning for me in more ways than one, although I didn't know it at the time. Not only that, but my friends in the writing world have helped me celebrate my successes in person, and I've done the same. I've been at book launches, film screenings, clapped when well-earned awards were won or deals struck. You name it, cheering my buddies along. And we continued to do the same online when that started to become more prevalent, when things like message boards and chat rooms were all the rage, when we all had MySpace pages, remember that? And then on into the era of Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. The latter still relatively new to me because I've only been on there a couple of years. All new beginnings, all grounded in one thing, friendship. Sometimes to look at the negatives of having an online presence. The fact that we can all hide behind a persona, often one that hides our own insecurities of being a writer. You probably wouldn't know it if you met me or saw my posts, but I'm actually quite shy. And sometimes we encounter people who don't like our work, people who can be very vocal about it on occasion, though I myself try my best to stay out of all the arguments if I can. I'm just not very good at it, you see. But what underpins all of this is friendship, same as in the real world. When the pandemic hit, we turned to our technology to keep in touch with loved ones, with family members we couldn't get out to see, with, in my case, my friends in the writing biz. We learned to rely on Zoom calls, on video chats and live meetings that were anything but. It was what kept a lot of us going and allowed us to have conventions and conferences when mass gatherings just weren't sensible, safe or allowed. Conferences like the one we've all been taking part in over the last couple of days. I forgot to mention when I was listing all the things I used to get up to writing wise way back when, that I also found myself helping out with the running of conventions and gatherings, learning the ropes as it were. I interviewed writers on stage in front of small and large crowds. A few of my most memorable and favourite ones were with the wonderful and hugely talented Muriel Gray, author of Furnace and The Ancient, the one and only Neil Gaiman, Stardust, American Gods, and my writing hero, Clive Barker, who of course wrote The Hellbound Heart and wrote and directed Hellraiser. I learned just as much about the craft, the trials and tribulations, and the joys of writing doing that as I did doing anything else. I learned how to put together and program panels, put souvenir books together, and under the tutelage of masters like Stephen Jones, Amanda Fubister, and Michael Marshall Smith, how to put on a damn good con where everyone has a blast. I was involved with numerous FCons and alt fictions back in the mid to late 2000s and early 2010s, and was part of the team putting together both World Horror in 2010, whose guests included the legends Jim Herbert and Ingrid Pitt, and the World Fantasy Convention in 2013, both of which we held in Brighton. These are such great times, and I have lots of terrific memories from all of them, as I'm sure anyone who attended back then does too. I've never, for example, seen before or since an entire convention come back from a book launch drunk as anything because it was a free bar, where if you ordered a single, you got a double, and if you ordered a double, you got a treble. This was the infamous Party on the Pier. Ask around if you haven't heard of it. Chances are someone that you know has. They might not be able to remember what happened there, though. We brought in discos and film shows, held raffles, which at times got a bit out of hand. I remember one year when people were trying to barter with the prizes. It all turned a bit Thunderdome from Mad Max. We even had a burlesque one year, which was a bit of an eye-opener. Some of the members of that convention in more ways than one. We celebrated milestone birthdays, 40th, 50th, 60th, and even 70th at cons like that one, with champagne flowing and music playing. We told many jokes and had many a laugh with all of our mates, which is what life's all about when you get right down to it. Good times and very fond memories. Thank goodness for photos. After a break of a few years, myself and Marie were working on StokerCon 2020, which we were going to host across 2 hotels in Scarborough, the Royal and the Grand. We've been in the planning stages of this for 3 years, ready to welcome the likes of Mick Garris, Gillian Redfern, Kim Newman and Grady Hendrix as guests, with John Connolly and Robert Lloyd Parry as special guests, and Alexandra Benedict as our Mistress of Ceremonies. We were ready to host yet another film show, the prestigious Final Frame competition, and a lovely little cinema we discovered on one of our many recce's to Scarborough, above a library no less, which we also plan to utilise for readings and events, the perfect marrying of words and images in one building. We were ready to put on many panels with subjects as wide-ranging as world horror and diversity to cosmic and folk horror. We were all set to host the Stoker Awards on a Saturday night, which would have been the usual glamorous affair. Marie and I remember the one we attended on the Queen Mary at Long Beach, and we were determined not to let the side down and make it extra special for everyone, winners, runners-up and viewers alike. Ready to welcome the Anne Radcliffe Academic Conference speakers to host talks from Grady, performances from Robert, as people like M.R. James. And if you've never seen Robert do one of these, I wholeheartedly recommend it. We caught him at the Dublin Ghost Story Festival, and you could hear a pin drop by the time he'd finished, warning to the curious. We were ready to do all of this literally just a few weeks away when COVID hit big time. To begin with, we had just a handful of people back out or quite rightly express concern about panels before social distancing became a thing. By the time it became clear just how much of an impact not only on our convention but the world this new virus would be, it was all but impossible to move forward as we'd intended. You can imagine how disappointed we and the attendees were. We looked at ways we could still do the convention, online or postponing, thinking maybe we'd all be safe again by the summer of 2020, then perhaps January of this year, renegotiating with the hotels and fielding inquiries from members. We're finally just locked in dates for March 2022 with a change of name to Chillicon, when hopefully this will all be a very different world to the one we've come to know since the pandemic started. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to deliver just as good a convention as we'd originally intended, perhaps even better, because by then we will definitely need something to celebrate. We've all had virtual launches, celebrated people's birthdays at a distance, their writing successes. For my part, I've got a new thriller out as Paul Kane, Her Husband's Grave from HQ HarperCollins, a collection called Darkness and Shadows from Sinister Horror Company, and I've just had a feature out called Sacrifice based on one of my stories, starring Barbara Crampton from Reanimator no less, a childhood horror hero of mine, so you can imagine my excitement at that. We've all got so much catching up to do. Over drinks, telling jokes, having a laugh and sharing war stories. And Chilicon will be part of a new beginning of conventions, gatherings and so on. Strange at first, but maybe also familiar. The after times as opposed to the before times, as Charlie Brooker from Black Mirror called them last year, or rather, for me anyway, sort of coming full circle. As great as technology has been, keeping us going, I see how much everyone has missed human contact, how much it's affected our mental health, writers and everyone else alike, and can't wait till we can all get together properly again once more. Until then, we have festivals like this one flying the flag and keeping us all going. They've been a vital lifeline in these awful times, doing what the real life ones did back when I first started going to them, connecting us all and presenting people with vital nuggets of information, tips, and things to avoid, encouragement, and words of wisdom. The talent assembled for this WordCrafter convention is amazing, and as I say, I'm really honoured to have been asked to say a few words as keynote speaker. I myself, at the time of recording this in the run up to the event, I'm looking forward to being on panels about characterization and world building. I'm looking forward to learning a thing or two from those and other ones, because we never really stop learning, no matter how long we've been around as writers. I'm looking forward to having chats and a laugh with my comrades in arms on here, hopefully inspiring others to come into the fold. We don't bite, really, well, not that often. So, as we're at the halfway point when this is being screened, I'll just say I hope you're having as much of a blast as I intend to at this gathering, and I'm looking forward to another day to come. It promises to be great. So stay safe, stay well, be kind to each other, and above all else, write more books, buy more books, and read more books. Thank you for listening.